Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen gets arrested for trying to steal toilet paper from Walmart. I've been working as a Walmart greeter for almost 7 years. I've seen my fair share of weird customers, but nothing could have prepared me for the woman who tried to steal a mega pack of toilet paper and then had the most ridiculous meltdown I've ever seen. It started out like any other day. I was stationed at the entrance, giving people a polite nod and the occasional welcome to Walmart. I do not usually get involved in much drama. Most people just go about their business and I do my job. But every now and then, someone walks in with an attitude so big, you just know trouble is coming. That was exactly what happened when she strutted in. She had the oversized sunglasses, even though we were indoors, and had one of those big tote bags with "Live, Laugh, Love" plastered across the front. She looked around like she was scoping the place out, but I didn't think much of it at first. I noticed her again about 20 minutes later when she was pushing her cart toward the exit. That was when I saw it. Right on top of her cart sat a massive pack of toilet paper, one of those bulk-sized ones that takes up half the cart. Something about the way she was walking seemed off. Most customers either have their receipt in their hand or they reach for it when they see me. This woman did neither. She was heading straight for the door like she had somewhere to be. "Excuse me, ma'am, can I see your receipt?" I asked with my usual polite tone. She stopped so fast that her cart rattled. Her mouth fell open like I had just insulted her entire family. "Are you accusing me of stealing?" I had dealt with enough difficult customers to know where this was going. "I just need to see your receipt, ma'am. Store policy." She placed a dramatic hand on her chest. "I can't believe this. I shop here all the time. I spend so much money in this store, and this is how I'm treated?" I didn't react. I found that silence is what works best when someone's trying to cause a scene. People in line were starting to watch now, which only made her more dramatic. She turned to a random customer, waving toward me like I was some kind of a criminal. "Can you believe this? They're targeting me." Before I could say anything, Marcus, our head of security, walked up. He's a big guy, quiet but serious, and people usually stop their nonsense the moment he shows up. "Ma'am, if you don't have a receipt, we will need to check your card," he said. The moment she realized security was involved, she doubled down. "This is harassment. You have no right to search my card." Marcus, calm as ever, reached for the card. "Then you should have no problem showing us the receipt." She grabbed the mega pack of toilet paper like it was her most prized possession. "You cannot take this. I paid for it." That was when Marcus started checking the rest of her cart. That was also when everything truly fell apart for her. Underneath the toilet paper, hidden between some grocery bags, were a dozen scented candles, a rotisserie chicken wrapped in plastic, a pack of expensive razors, and several pieces of clearance jewelry. She even stole clearance jewelry? And for some reason, a stack of Walmart gift cards she had not paid for. Marcus held up one of the candles. "Did you pay for this too?" Her face turned about 5 different shades of red before she shrieked. "This is a setup. I knew you people were out to get me." That was when the real performance began. She started screaming loud enough that a cashier flinched. She grabbed the toilet paper and hugged it to her chest, acting like we were all trying to rip it away from her. Then, in a move I will never forget, she actually tried to run. She yanked the cart forward and bolted toward the exit. She didn't make it very far. One of the cart wheels was wobbly, and as she tried to swerve around a display of canned beans, the whole thing tipped over. The mega pack of toilet paper launched into the air, rolls scattered everywhere. The rotisserie chicken bounced out of her tote bag and landed right at my feet. She hit the ground hard. Her sunglasses finally slid off her face. By now, Marcus and another security guard had stepped forward. "Ma'am, you're being detained for shoplifting," he said. She immediately switched from rage to fake crying. "This is a misunderstanding. I have kids to feed." At that moment, the police arrived. They took one look at the mess, listened to Marcus' statement, and within a few minutes, she was in handcuffs. As they led her toward the exit, she screamed, "I'm never shopping here again." And just like that, the store was quiet again. It was just another day at Walmart. Well, what about you? Have you ever stolen anything from Walmart? Please let us know. I'm just kidding. Keep it secret. Don't tell anybody. Am I the jerk for telling my boss that I wasn't invited to the party? I, 26 female, started a new job a few months ago, and it didn't take long to get a feel for the office dynamics. It was a mid-sized company, the kind where everyone seemed to know each other well, and I was still finding my place. Early on, I learned that one of my colleagues, Marie, was engaged and getting married in just under 2 months. From what I gathered, it was a pretty big deal in the office. Everyone seemed to be attending, and conversations about wedding plans popped up regularly. I never expected an invitation. I had just started, and weddings aren't exactly last-minute events. Venues are booked months, sometimes years in advance. Guest lists are finalized, and I understood completely that I wasn't part of her close circle. My friend had just gotten married, so I had recently seen firsthand how much planning goes into it. Marie seemed a little hesitant to bring it up around me, like she wasn't sure if I'd feel left out. But I never made a big deal out of it, and it didn't bother me at all. Then, about a month before the wedding, I got CC'd on an email from Joan, another colleague, who was organizing a bridal shower for Marie in the office break room. It was set to take place during lunch in a couple of weeks. The email explained that they were collecting contributions for a group gift, cash to give to Marie, and Joan included her Venmo information. She also suggested we make it a potluck and asked everyone to reply with what they planned to bring. Even though I wasn't invited to the wedding, I had no issue chipping in. Weddings are a big milestone, and I figured it was just a nice way to celebrate a coworker. I sent Joan $20 on Venmo and replied to the email saying I'd bring lasagna for the potluck. Simple, no big deal. A little while later, I checked my phone and I saw that my $20 had been returned. At first, I thought maybe Joan had received too many contributions or something, but before I could think much of it, she walked over to my desk. "Hey, I just wanted to let you know you don't need to contribute to the shower." I looked at her a little confused. "Oh, I know I don't need to, but I wanted to," I said. "Even if I'm not attending the wedding, it's still a nice thing to do." Joan hesitated, clearly trying to find the right words. "It's just, you're not invited to the shower." That threw me off. "Wait, what?" She glanced away for a second. "Marie just didn't want there to be any confusion about the wedding invites. I never thought I was invited to the wedding." Joan let out a relieved breath. "Oh, that's great. But yeah, you still can't come to the shower." I was completely caught off guard. "So I can't go into the break room during lunch?" "Well, no, not for this." I looked around the office thinking it over. Where am I supposed to go? She shifted slightly. "You could stay at your desk." Our office wasn't near any restaurants, and I didn't have a car to go anywhere. My only option was to sit alone while everyone else gathered in the break room to celebrate. "Doesn't that seem a little unfair?" I asked. Joan fidgeted. "It's just that Marie didn't want you to assume you were invited to the wedding." I took a breath. "I get that, but this isn't the wedding." She gave a quick nod. "I know, but that's just how it is." At that point, I realized there was no point in arguing. "All right, well, have a good party." The day of the shower rolled around, and when lunchtime came, everyone else went to the break room while I stayed at my desk, eating my lunch alone. The office felt oddly quiet. I wasn't upset, but I couldn't ignore how strange it was to be left out like that. About halfway through, one of the nicer coworkers, someone I hadn't talked to much, walked by and placed a piece of cake on my desk. "This whole thing is dumb," she muttered before heading back. I gave her a small nod of thanks. Then something unexpected happened. The big boss walked in. She usually wasn't in the office on Fridays, so seeing her there was a surprise. She stopped when she saw me still at my desk. "Why aren't you at the party?" she asked. I wasn't sure how to answer at first, but I just told the truth. I wasn't invited. Her expression changed. She glanced toward the break room, then back at me. Then she walked off. I didn't think much of it at the time, but later that day, an email went out from her banning all workplace parties during work hours moving forward. People were not happy about it. It didn't take long before some of them figured out that I must have said something. Joan and Marie, in particular, started acting differently toward me. Nothing direct, but the way they spoke to me was clipped, and I caught a few whispered conversations that stopped as soon as I walked by. Some friends have told me I should have just made something up when my boss asked why I wasn't there, said I was busy or didn't feel like attending, instead of getting the whole thing shut down. But I didn't complain, I just answered a direct question honestly. So now I'm left wondering, was I wrong for saying something? Or was I just caught in an awkward situation I never asked to be part of? Not the jerk. They're the ones who messed around and did an exclusionary thing. You didn't tattle on them to the big boss. The boss asked you why you were sitting at your desk and weren't at the party, and you explained. All Marie had to do was be a gracious person and include you in the office gathering. You were fine with the $20 contribution and lasagna, and she didn't have to be worried about you not going to the wedding. Joan and Marie are the jerks here. I'm a librarian, and some parents treat this place like a daycare. I've been a librarian since before most of you were even born, and I've dealt with just about every kind of person you can imagine. Most library visitors are great, quiet, polite, and just there to read, study, or use the computers. But then there are the others. Some of the worst are the parents who bring their kids in and act like the library is their personal daycare. I get it, kids can be noisy, and I don't expect total silence. But there is a huge difference between normal kid behavior and what some of these parents allow. Here are a few of my worst encounters. A woman came in with her 2 kids, probably around 4 and 6 years old. They immediately started running full speed through the aisles, yelling and laughing like they were at the park. One of them nearly knocked over an elderly man carrying a stack of books. I walked over to the mom and politely said, "Ma'am, can you please ask your kids to walk and use their indoor voices? This is the library." She barely looked up from her phone. "They're kids. What do you expect?" I expected basic parenting, but I didn't say that. Instead, I tried again. "I understand, but we have other patrons who are trying to read and study." She rolled her eyes. "Ugh, fine." Then she turned to her kids and muttered, "The mean library lady wants you to stop having fun." Of course, the kids immediately started fake crying and making a scene. She shot me a smug look and went back to scrolling through Facebook. Another time, a man walked in with his son who looked to be about 8. He told the kid, "Stay here, I'll be back soon," and he left. Just walked right out the door without another word. I figured he was just running to the car or grabbing something nearby. Nope, 2 hours passed. The kid had no idea where his dad went. I finally asked him, "Hey buddy, do you know when your dad is coming back?" He shrugged. He said he had errands. At this point, I had to call the police because, for all I knew, he had just left him at the library. Right as the officer showed up, the dad came strolling back in with a coffee like nothing was wrong. The police talked to him, but because the kid wasn't in any immediate danger, they let him off with a warning. The dad actually had the nerve to get mad at me. "You didn't have to make a big deal out of it," he snapped. "It's just the library." Another time, a woman walked in with 3 kids under the age of 10. Within minutes, they were screaming, climbing on the furniture, and throwing picture books on the floor. I walked over and asked, "Do you need help finding something?" which was my polite way of saying, "Please control your kids." She sighed dramatically. "Isn't there, like, a story time or kids program or something?" I explained that we do have story time, but it's scheduled on certain days and it requires sign-ups. "So what are they supposed to do now?" she huffed. "Maybe pick out a book or a puzzle," I suggested. "They don't like books. Can't you put on a movie or something? Or do some activity with them?" I just stared at her. "Lady, I'm a librarian, not your personal babysitter." When I told her we did not offer on-demand entertainment, she rolled her eyes and muttered, "What kind of library is this?" The kind where parents are supposed to actually watch their kids. And this one still makes me mad. One time a couple came in with twin toddlers. They brought them to the children's section, set them down at the train table, and then walked away to browse books for themselves. Within minutes, the kids started ripping books off the shelves, throwing puzzle pieces across the room, and climbing on the tables. I walked over to the parents and said, "Hey, your kids are making quite a mess. Could you help them clean up?" The mom barely glanced up from her book. "Oh, they're just playing." I gestured toward the disaster zone. "They've pulled about 20 books off the shelves." The dad waved his hand. "Isn't that your job to clean up?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I gave my best customer service smile and said, "Actually, we expect parents to supervise their kids and help them pick up after themselves." The mom huffed and stomped over to her kids. "The librarian is yelling at us," she muttered loudly, making sure I could hear her. "Ma'am, if you think that was yelling, I would love to see you in a real confrontation." One of the most common complaints I hear is about computer time limits. Kids get 1 hour, and when the timer runs out, they have to wait before getting back on. One day, a kid was playing Minecraft on the library computer when his session ended. He immediately ran to his mom, wailing like he had just been attacked. She stormed over to me. "Why did you shut off my kid's game?" I explained the time limit. She crossed her arm. Well, that's a stupid rule. He was in the middle of something. I understand, but we have to be fair for all of the patrons. If he wants another turn, he'll have to wait. He doesn't like books. Then why are you at the library? 5 days later, I saw her in the children's section like nothing had happened. I love my job, but sometimes I wonder how some of these people function in society. Not every kid in the library is bad, and not every parent is awful. But when they are, it makes for a really long day. If you have kids, please, I'm begging you, teach them how to behave in a library. Because some of us are one screaming child away from quitting on the spot. Family refuses to leave the hospital after visiting hours. Then the police show up. I work as a hospital security officer, and let me tell you, people think our job is just sitting at a desk all night. The reality is, we deal with some of the most emotional, chaotic, and sometimes downright frustrating situations you can imagine. One night, I got called to a patient's room because a huge family refused to leave after visiting hours ended. This happens more than you would think, so I wasn't too concerned at first. I figured it would be the usual routine. Explain the policy, let them say a quick goodbye, and walk them out. Easy, right? Not this time. When I got up to the floor, there were at least 10 people crowded into the hallway outside the room. They had dragged chairs from the waiting area and were basically setting up camp. It looked like a family reunion. Kids were playing on tablets, someone had a fast food bag open, and one guy was literally leaned back against the wall like he was getting comfortable for the night. I walked up and gave them the usual polite but firm rundown. Hey folks, visiting hours ended about an hour ago. I know you want to be here for your loved one, but we need to start clearing the area. Most times, this is where people nod, grumble a little, and start gathering their things. But not this group. One woman, who I'm guessing is the patient's daughter, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Yeah, we are not leaving." I gave her a second, thinking maybe she was joking, but she wasn't. I tried again. I understand, but the hospital has rules for a reason. The patient needs rest, and having this many people here overnight is not allowed. That set her off. Oh, so now we're just supposed to leave my father here all alone? What if something happens to him while we're gone? Who's going to be with him then? I get this kind of argument a lot, so I stayed calm. The nurses and doctors are here to take care of him. I know it's a tough situation, but we can't allow this many people to stay overnight. She crossed her arms and leaned in like she was trying to intimidate me. Well, we are staying, and I would love to see you try to make us leave. At this point, I called for backup. I've been in this job long enough to know that when people challenge you like that, they're not going to go quietly. My coworker, a guy named Chris, showed up a few minutes later. He's about 6'4", built like a linebacker, and looks like he could bench press a hospital bed. Usually, just his presence alone is enough to calm people down. Not this time. The daughter pointed at him and laughed. Oh, what? You brought backup? You think we're scared of you? Chris, completely unfazed, crossed his arms. Ma'am, you need to leave. Now. That was when the yelling started. The whole family got involved at once. One guy shouted, "We have rights." Another started recording us on his phone, muttering about a lawsuit. Someone's aunt was in the background, loudly fake crying about how cruel the hospital was. A nurse tried stepping in, explaining that they needed to clear the hallway for other patients, but she barely got 2 sentences out before the daughter snapped at her. Mind your business. You're not kicking us out. At this point, we had 2 choices. Either let them take over the hospital for the night or call the police. So we called the police. The moment the family heard officers were on the way, the mood shifted. Suddenly, the daughter went from shouting to fake cooperation mode. Oh, well, nobody said we had to leave right now. We just wanted to… Chris cut her off. You were given multiple chances. You're leaving. The police showed up, took one look at the situation, and told them the exact same thing we did. Hospital rules are not optional. Either they leave peacefully or they get escorted out. Finally, after wasting an hour of everyone's time, they started gathering their things. The daughter kept running her mouth about how unfair it was, but at least they were moving. As they walked past me toward the exit, she glared and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. I hope you can sleep at night knowing what you did." Lady, I work night shift at a hospital. I don't sleep at all. The best part? 20 minutes after they left, a different family member tried to sneak back in through another entrance. Security caught them immediately. Some people just refuse to follow the rules. I moved in with my best friend, and now he can't stand living with me. So I, 28 male, neurodivergent, moved in with my friend Jake, fake name, a few weeks ago after my parents kicked me out. Long story short, they threw away my entire Funko Pop collection. I completely lost it, broke my dad's phone in the argument, and was told to leave. Jake and I have been friends since middle school, so I thought living together would be fine. Turns out, it's becoming a disaster, and honestly, most of it is my fault. I can't cook, like at all. Timing, smells, even knowing when food is done, it all just gets jumbled in my head. I either overcook things into mush, or I undercook them into something that barely qualifies as food. On top of that, I hyper-focus on weird food combinations because I get obsessed with specific tastes and textures, which is where things started to go wrong. The first real problem happened when I tried to make tuna ramen. I saw it in a video and I thought it looked good, but somehow I overcooked the noodles until they basically dissolved into paste, then dumped in way too much mayo and mustard because the recipe said a little, and I couldn't figure out what that meant. I left the burner on low without realizing it, and the whole thing ended up smelling like burnt fish and spoiled eggs. The worst part was that the smell didn't go away for days. Jake came home, took one sniff, and looked like he was going to be sick. He waved a hand in front of his face and said, "Dude, what is that?" I told him it was just dinner, and he just stared at the pot, then at me, then back at the pot before muttering, "All right, I'm eating in my room." The next disaster was hot dog rice, which was literally just chopped up hot dogs mixed with rice and ketchup. I thought it was a simple and safe meal, but somehow I burned the rice so badly that it stuck to the bottom of the pot in a solid black layer, and the hot dogs came out gray. I didn't even know that was possible. Jake walked in right as I was trying to scrape the burnt rice off the bottom of the pot. He gagged. "Is something dead in here?" I told him it was just the hot dog rice, and he shook his head, grabbed his keys, and left. That was the first time he left just to avoid my cooking, but it wouldn't be the last. It's not just that my food tastes bad, it smells awful. Burnt, sour, greasy, just wrong. I think I've gotten used to it because it doesn't really register for me after a while. But Jake has made a few comments that make it clear it's getting to him. "Dude, it smells like a garbage disposal in here. What are you even making? The walls are going to absorb this stench. I can taste it in the air." "You don't smell that? How do you not smell that?" I never really know how to answer these without embarrassing myself. I just shrug, mumble something about trying a new recipe, and hope he drops it. But the final straw? That was last night. I got in my head that scrambled eggs mixed with canned chili would be good. I don't know why, but I was fixated on the idea all day. So I gave it a shot. It was a disaster. The eggs cooked too fast and got all rubbery, while the chili separated into this weird greasy sludge. The smell hit me all at once, like feet mixed with wet dog and old socks. I was so close to throwing it out, but I figured maybe it just looked bad, so I took a bite. It was worse than I imagined. I immediately dumped it in the sink and let the water run all over it, but by then, the entire apartment reeked. Jake got home, stepped inside, and immediately stopped in the doorway. "Dude." I turned around, still holding the pot. "What did you do?" I told him it was just an experiment that didn't work out. He didn't even answer at first, just walked straight to the window, shoved it open, and stuck his head outside like he needed fresh air immediately. When he turned back around, he saw the pot sitting in the sink and lost it. "You can't just destroy my kitchen and leave this nasty mess for me to deal with later." I tried to explain that I was letting it soak because I read somewhere that soaking helps with burnt food, but he just groaned and rubbed his face. "That only works if you clean it after, not if you just leave it there for me to wake up to in the morning." That's when it hit me. I genuinely thought I was helping by letting things soak overnight, but to him, it looked like I was making a mess and expecting him to deal with it. Now I feel awful. I know I'm the problem, but I don't know how to fix it. Cooking has always been hard for me. I either forget steps, get overwhelmed, or hyper-focus on one thing and ruin everything else. But now, it's not just about me being bad at cooking, it's about me making my only friend miserable. I feel like a disgusting burden, and if I don't figure this out soon, I'm scared I'm going to end up homeless because I can't cook like a normal person. I just had to get this off my chest. Wow, this one is rough. It's obvious OP doesn't mean any harm, but his cooking disasters are really testing his friend's patience. I get why Jake is frustrated, but I also feel for OP since he's really struggling. What do you think? Should Jake be more understanding, or is OP in over his head? Let us know in the comments. Oh honey, if failure had a smell, it would be your cooking. No wonder your friend wants to evacuate the premises. Imagine your partner's asking you for your social security number. They tell you that their friend works for the government and they want them to do a special background check on you. That's exactly what happens in this story just popped up on the screen. OP's girlfriend is demanding his social security number and he's not happy about it. So come on over and have a listen. We'll be waiting for you. See you soon.